Howdy folks, we're looking at Edge Magazine, issue 45, released May 1997, discussing the future of interactive entertainment. Yes, Tom Cruise will also be a part of that. We also have John Romero, so this could be interesting. Now this cover looks kind of bland. The backside looks pretty cool though. Don't know how they came up with this concept. Maybe this is part of the artwork of the game. They added edge to it. But yes, yet another cover that's not that fantastic. So the inside column though is not about Tom Cruise, but about the all the different video cards, and how that yet another one has been released. Another improvement for PC 3D game performance, and the consumer probably having a hard time keeping up, if not game developers. You see Pac-Man here because there will be an extensive article on game emulation. But yes, there's a Power VR, a new one. So, like I said, perhaps too many for the marketplace. The Tokyo Game Show showing all kinds of games which will be big later on, like Squaresoft's Final Fantasy VII. If I get close, you'll see Tekken 3. A lot of future hits and some forgettable ones being shown at this show. Here we have a bunch of them. Which ones do you recognize? Well, I'll leave that up to you, because I don't feel like going into all of them. DMA, the people who made Grand Theft Auto and Lemmings, are now part of Gremlin. I don't know when Take-Two and or Rockstar Games started, but that would come afterwards. More talk about the M2. And, yeah, still nothing really being shown. So what's out there in culture? Well, apparently, I didn't know this, there was a Donkey Kong Country cartoon. You could find it on YouTube. It's pretty bland. It uses pretty good-looking CGI graphics, though. It's funny to hear Donkey Kong talk like a 19-year-old. A commercial by Nintendo featuring a girl tied up to a bed and looking upset. The idea is that your Game Boy is more interesting than her or something. Well, that was banned. Understandably so. It's pretty bad humor. And some actor will be used for the Turok commercials. Let's take a look at Japan. The Tokyo Game Show. Well, we looked at that. Oh no, this is the toy show. So all kinds of toys are discussed, but none of them except the Tamagotchi I actually recall. What's up with this? Oh yeah, a special cafe where you can go to sit down and read. And you would pay per so many hours that you sit there. Perhaps, yeah, there's a library nearby where you could get manga, which has a comparable system. And this I didn't know. Marvel Superheroes, the Japanese version, the fighting game by Capcom, actually has a character based on a TV personality. And he's like a businessman of sorts, and he throws things. So it's fascinating, and yeah, you can look that up. I've never heard of that character. I should have said the name, but I'm not going to look for it now. Okay, so this article is about how companies can make money by selling internet services for games. Diablo was free at the time, I remember, Battle.net. Same thing with Quake. Later we would have Xbox Live, of course, but like games like World of Warcraft would be a monthly subscription, things like that. Well, this is all very speculative, and they try to calculate how expensive playing online games are, and it's a bit of a mess, but yes, back in 1997 it was really expensive. Hisao Oguchi, who has made a lot of games for AM3, like Sega Rally. There's an interview with him. I did read it, but I didn't pick up that much that I really liked. There is some talk about the skating game, which we'll be seeing later. He talks about why the Model 2 board is still interesting because of its cheap price, and that he's not concerned that the Model 3 board, Virtua Fighter 3, would also be too expensive, that it would become cheaper too. So let's work on games for that. It's really hard to read the questions because of the coloring. Here we have John Romero. This is probably in California, and he just started up Ion Storm, and he has a lot to say. This was a fun interview. He plays lots of games. He mentions a lot of them, like Chrono Trigger, a lot of recent ones too. He really seems to know what's out there at the moment. And there's talk about how he and Tom Hole started Ion Storm, how he didn't like being part of ID anymore because ID was more focused on tech and less on design. So he started Ion Storm because he had a lot of ideas for games. He couldn't put them in Quake, and he was happy with Quake, but he wanted to continue his creative ideas with Daikatana, of course, and Achronix would be made by Tom Hole. Both of them kind of flops commercially. Yeah, he talks about how he, just like Edge, wishes that more could be done in shooting games than just shooting. There's also talk about how he loves Shigeru Miyamoto. And he talks about the storyline of Daikatana, which doesn't sound very interesting at all. It's just convoluted. And yeah, so talk about how he first started working for Apogee, and that once they got royalties selling, I think it was Wolfenstein 3D, they went on to make their own company and do everything themselves. Of course, Apogee would later make 3D Realms and Duke Nukem. Okay, so pre-screen alphas. What's this? This is Giants? No, this is Populous 3. That was released, I think, but it wasn't a big hit. Yeah, lots of games. Mega Man X4, Panzer Dragoon Saga being shown. Yeah, let's move on a bit. Some tank game. What's this? Extreme Assault, apparently. Here we have Samurai Spirits 64. Little Big Adventure 2 would be released, not as popular as Part 1. Gumon for the Nintendo 64 is highly underrated. And Metal Gear Solid looking really good. Edge getting really excited about the game. There'll be the cover feature next time. So that would be a humongous hit. And here's a whole page of Zelda 64 images, looking more like Ocarina of Time than ever. Yeah, the shield looks in place. Link looks more adult. I don't remember this enemy. This kind of like what is it? A scorpion of sorts, a lobster. We have the fairy hanging around, you see. Nivi was her name. It's been a while since I've played it. Very annoying. And here you have the old gravestones, which were crosses back then. Okay. Baku Bomberman. I don't know what Baku are like demons that eat dreams, I believe. And I don't know what Bomberman has to do with dreams, but this would be Bomberman 64 later. A somewhat pleasable single-player adventure, but not very fun 4-player mode. So, but looks pretty cool. Oh yeah, this game I think was released. Dreams 2 Reality. I think it was finished. It's made by Cryo, a French company. Not much information about this game on the web, but it wasn't considered very good. And then we have Dark Vengeance. This game made in the US by Reality Bytes with a Y. And this was supposed to be a 3D game with more interesting combat than shooting games with, classes based on Dungeons & Dragons. It looks a lot like Quake 1. Wouldn't be surprised if they use the same engine. But, again, not very popular and not much information on the internet about it, even though Edge gives both of these games 2 pages. G-Police gets even 3 pages, made by Psygnosis, and it looks very Blade Runner-ish. You are a police person in a hovercraft of sorts, and you go around doing what the police does, getting the bad guys. So it looks pretty cool. It sold pretty well, I believe. There might have been a sequel, I'm not sure yet. So, X-Men versus TIE Fighter, this would be a big hit. Okay, here's another game that is hardly known because it was never released, I believe. Lunatic with a K. Originally developed for the Saturn. The Saturn by then was not that popular anymore. This is the company called Pure. Would publish under Psygnosis, a UK-based firm. So this game, as far as I know, wasn't released, though it looks really cool. What was released was Respect Inc., although the only thing I could find about this game was a Russian YouTube video. And yes, you play some kind of gangster against other gangsters, and it looks really cartoony. There are hardly any images except this here. But this confirms that the video I could find on YouTube is the same game. Oh yeah, here we also have Respect Inc. Very dark game. You walk around like this town and you shoot people. Apparently it's a bit smarter than that because enemies will communicate to fight you, but I didn't see anything of that in the video. Silicon Dreams, another UK company who specialize in sports games. Here we have a football game. Wasn't that popular. They also had a snowboarding game called, what's it called again? Chill. Hardly anything to be found on the internet about that one. And apparently they're developing for the M2, so if you really want to know about the nuts and bolts of the hypothetical M2, you might want to look into this. I'll slowly go over it. The texture cache, that kind of thing. I find it fascinating that Edge gave so much information on the M2, but was never released. Well, I mean, at the time there were no other future consoles to talk about, and that was the main main thing that Edge did, you know, the future. Okay, Mission Impossible. A lot of hype because GoldenEye was so big, and yes, it looked fantastic at the time. So even before GoldenEye was released, people were interested in this. Apparently you can't shoot anybody, just like Ethan can't. Reading this interview, it sounds like what the people did in Deus Ex. Oh, here you have like a gun of sorts. I'm confused because they say in the interview that he won't be able to shoot people. I don't even know what happens in the real game. I didn't bother to further research Mission Impossible for Nintendo 64, a game I've never played. But I'll do that for next time for the review. It did sell pretty well, probably because of the name, but the reviews were around a 6. They didn't like it that much. Perhaps it was just too sophisticated. They should have twerked the gameplay better. I don't know. It took a long time to finish too. It looks fantastic though. Hey, Actual Sports, another UK company making soccer games. This time Gremlin. And Actual was, well, okay, but was not as good as the EA games, as far as I recall. They also had a golfing game. They had an ice hockey game. So, no, they couldn't compete with EA in the long run. Probably because they're smaller. And I don't recall any of these games really sticking out. So, yeah. I keep complaining about how ugly the covers are, but I mean, look at this. We have kind of a cool looking Nintendo 64. We have a number 50. This one was kind of cool. At least this was ugly. Well, it's Mario. Simple. Abstract. More abstract. Oh, somewhat pretty. This was a cool cover. This one was pretty cool, but this one was probably the ugliest Edge one ever. Simple. Kind of plain. Ugly, you know, and again, kind of ugly. So, and apparently I see that there were these supplements. I don't have these though, so maybe one day I'll have to try to collect these. Okay, the new media. Here's, in my opinion, the Chemical Brothers' best album. What was it called again? Dig Your Own Hole. So that was a classic, 97. And here's a CD magazine called PlayStation Underground, which would have extra features on games, including demos. Digital camera. Hey, it's a Roland synthesizer of sorts, or Groovebox. More CDs, I don't know. Deeper, 2-year Odyssey in cyberspace. Edge recommends if you're interested in what it was like getting into cyberspace before the World Wide Web. Yeah, handheld PC. This looks nifty. I would still get this if it worked well. If we could go on the internet with it. Okay. So emulation. Edge actually liked the idea of emulating old games, and they in this article they look at games and emulators, because at the time it was kind of hard to find the right emulator. So games you should get for the Amstrad, for the Atari 2600, aka VCS, the Apple II, the Atari 5200 or 5200, Atari 400/800, which was the Rolls-Royce of computing at the time. Commodore 64 had a lot of games, of course, so they get 2 pages. Apparently Atari 400 actually had a game like Punch-Out. Look at that. It has the green wireframe character, just like the arcade game. You see that? I couldn't find it on the web, though. I'd love to see how they tried to turn the arcade game, which had fantastic graphics, onto the, by then, somewhat old Atari 400 or 800. We have the ColecoVision. The not-so-well-known Dragon 32, a British microcomputer. And here's a comparison of all kinds of Donkey Kongs, which is kind of cute. There's also a red part talking about the legalness or the ethics of emulation. What can I say? I don't buy Super Nintendo games anymore because, you know, well, I had most of them at one time, so in a sense it's kind of legal. But what can I say? I'd rather play something on an emulator where I can save anywhere and speed up the game if necessary. Blast Corps gets an 8 out of 10, one of the most original games for the Nintendo 64. Looks fantastic, plays really good. Rare's first game for the Nintendo 64, and yeah, it was a blast. It sold pretty well from what I understand, but still people consider it a hidden gem for some reason. Probably because it never had a sequel. Yeah, you go around blowing things up to make sure that a bigger bomb doesn't blow everything up, and there are all kinds of different cars and robots you can control. And it had a nice tempo, easy to understand. Moto Racer, yes, for the PC now, by Electronic Arts, gets an 8 out of 10. It looks good. I don't think there was anything special about it, though. Interstate 76, a very groovy racing shooting game. Also, it's made by Activision. Activision back then wasn't the huge video game company it was in the 80s or is now. So this is one of their hits in the 90s. And it looks really good. X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter gets a 9 out of 10. And I think everybody agreed upon that. Looks fantastic. It had less polygons to calculate than Quake because you were just in space. So highly detailed images of the spacecrafts, and it played well too, this being the so manyth X-Wing game being released in the 90s. Terracide, people compare this to Descent, and rightfully so. It's for the PC, released by Eidos, and it gets in 7 out of 10, so it's more of the same. Looks pretty good. More colorful than Quake at least, but it would never really catch on. Bushido Blade, a cult hit for the PlayStation 1. I've never liked it. I always thought it was a bit simple. Mostly known for the short bouts because, yeah, you could do really nasty stuff if you got hit by one. If you manage to hit your opponent, but it gets 6 out of 10 because it's, you know, really realistic, and that has also a certain charm to it. Even though Edge says games should be better than realistic. Here's Dragon Force, the Saturn tactical game. In my opinion, even better than Final Fantasy Tactics. Gets a 8 out of 10. Kind of a hidden gem, I guess. So, yeah, if you own a Saturn, you probably heard of this because Saturn people, they love their hidden gems. Sand Warriors gets a 7 out of 10. This is a flying shoot 'em game, mostly in the desert. Looks pretty good. It's really simple, but it's done very well. So it still gets a 7. Doom 64 has different levels than the original and better graphics. So that's cool. No deathmatch, though. gets a 7 out of 10. Exevius 3D/G+. I've never followed the series, but apparently this is the first one with polygons. And old school Xevious was very popular with the colored backgrounds. This one gets a 7 out of 10. Speedster gets a 6 out of 10. We talked about that earlier. It's a racing game from the top down by Psygnosis. More reviews. MechWarrior 2 for the PlayStation. Gets an 8 out of 10. It's with mechs. You shoot each other. Spider gets a 5 out of 10. Made by British company BMG. Were they British? No, they're American. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Boss Game Studios, anyhow. Yeah, 5 out of 10. You play a spider. Human Grand Prix for Nintendo 64 only gets a 5 out of 10. Edge a little bit disappointed. Doraemon gets a 5 out of 10. It's like a Mario 64 game. NHL Power Play 97 gets an 8 out of 10. Made by Sega. Sega was at the time very good at sports games. They still are, right? Don't they make the 2K series, or is that now 2K games? Anyhow, yeah, Power Play 97 looks a bit like NHL 94. Star Trek Generations get a 7 out of 10 for the PC. Hopefully better than the movie. Namco Museum Fallen 5 is finally released with Pac-Mania and other forgettable Namco games. Sparkade releases, I don't know what this is. This is kind of like a shareware thing with Zaxxon and Bomb Jack. I don't know. Okay, the gallery. This looks pretty nice, but these are not images from games, but from a 3D studio. Yes, 3D studio. Now, Blast Corps looks fantastic when fully rendered. Of course, it's not the Nintendo 64 graphics, even though we were made to believe that in 1993, that they would look that good. I still show you all these advertisements to have an idea, to give you an idea which companies were around at the time. And, you know, I just want to show you the whole magazine. Some of them just look horrible. But hey, they helped pay for the magazine I love. Sometimes I kind of miss them. Okay, PF573 was never released. It's the Konami fighting game. Meant to use the Cobra board. They got pretty far actually, and there is a video online showing the game being played. It looks a lot like Virtua Fighter 3. Top Skater, that's interesting. Now, this picture fascinated me because it looks like he's grinding, like in Tony Hawk, but I looked at videos of people playing this game and nobody actually grinds, although maybe I should go to this level. What you can do, it's basically kind of like a racing game, but you gain extra points for doing tricks. Most of the trips are aerials, so you use ramps to go up and do a couple flips or grab your board in certain ways, and you get extra points. What you don't see here is that to play the game, you actually stood on a board in the arcade, and you keep your balance using your hands on bars. Shoes were advertised in the game, as was Coca-Cola, and it has a very 90s grungy Offspring-like soundtrack, which music I hate, to be honest. But fascinating. I really should check out to see if you could actually grind in that game, but I don't think so because it wasn't done in the first couple levels. Hey, one person complaining that you cannot save everywhere you want in MDK. Let's see. I did read these letters yesterday, but I don't remember any of them sticking out. Person saying, "Hey, come on, that game for the M2 that looks horrible. What's up with that?" Well, Edge says it, still looks impressive when seeing it in real life. Let's see. Somebody's saying you could easily make VR if you can make two-player split screen. Well, it's not as easy as that. Somebody's saying that 2D has better gameplay than 3D, and that person is correct. And what's this again? Some technical stuff. Yeah, as I'm talking about the pricing of games. Okay, and then probably the last Q&A, considering how small it is, somebody asking how can I get the most out of my Nintendo 64 hooking it up to a TV, and which import console should I get? What's next month? Well, it's very unclear. I'll read a little bit out loud. Some look at the company that made Way of the Exploding Fist and The Hobbit. That was a click and carry adventure, one of the first ones using graphics. So going to Melbourne House, and indeed in Melbourne, so that's far away for Edge. And they're going to go to Delphine, who made Motor Racer, and there was. See, I'm probably missing out on this, so I'm sorry I can't show you this, but they're going to also go to Bullfrog, Peter Molyneux's studio, and look at the next Populous 3 and probably Dungeon Keeper 2. So, yeah, it's a shame I won't be able to show you that, but I bet next time will still be a blast. They turned the wool into an E. Well done. Here's the better looking backside. And that was Edge Magazine 45. Good to have you again, and see you next time.